All right, we are back with another Ohio State Test standard review. Today we are talking about standard 8.G.9, which has to do with volumes. Volumes. If you've been watching all of these videos in chronological order, this is the last standard that we have to cover, the very last one. So let us celebrate that. But first, we have problems to solve. Let's start. A cylinder is shown. What is the volume in cubic meters of the cylinder? Now, the reason we didn't go over volumes much in class was because it's really just find the formula and plug it in. Okay? The formula is on the reference sheet that you will have in front of you on the test. So the formula for the volume of a cylinder is pi times radius squared times height. So let's talk about the difference about what a radius is. In any circle, you can have three types of lines. You can have a chord, which is any line that extends from one end of the circle to the other. Come on, Deets. I know it's been a long day, but let's go. There we go. There is a diameter, which is any line that extends from one end of the circle to the other that passes through the middle. It has to specifically pass through the middle. And there's a radius, which is any line that goes from the middle to the edge of a circle. So this would be a radius. This would be a diameter. Okay? Your diameter is always twice a radius. So D equals 2 times R, or R equals 1/2 D, which is more likely what we'll be using. So when I look at this cylinder, I have to look at this 6, and I have to say, is this a diameter or is this a radius? And you can see that the arrow points all the way from one end to the other. So that is the diameter. So I have to have that 6 to get my radius. So that makes my radius 3 equals R. My height is 10. So now we just plug it in. V equals pi times 3 squared times 10. And then you go into your calculator. And what I do is I do the calculation without pi first. So 3 squared times 10 would be 90. Because sometimes with like this multiple choice question here, they leave it with pi. They don't calculate out pi. So I do the calculation without pi first to see if I can get it from that. And then if I needed to go further, I would just do 90 pi. And that's not even going to tell you what it is. Oh my God. 90 pi. There we go. 282.74. But we stop at 90 pi because the choice says to stop at 90 pi. All right, a cylinder is shown. What is the volume in cubic centimeters of the cylinder? Round your answer to the nearest tenth. So now it wants you to calculate it all out. Okay? So our height is 6.5 centimeters. Pi r squared h. Our height is 6.5 centimeters. Our radius is 8, because you see this line only goes from the halfway spot to the edge. So that's going to be our radius, is 8. Now, since we know it wants us to round to the nearest tenth, and it doesn't want an answer in the form of pi, we can just put all this in one go. And it gives you 1,306.90. And remember, if you're rounding to the nearest tenth, the tenth is one spot after the decimal. So this 9 will round up or down based on the number next to it, which in this case is 0, which kind of makes it an easy decision. So that would be 1,306.9 centimeters cubed. double checking my math here. Yep. All right. A cone with a radius of 3 inches and a height of 18 inches is shown. Now this is nice because there's no guesswork on whether or not it's a radius or a diameter because it tells you it's a radius. It says it right here. What is the volume in cubic inches of the cone? Round your answer to the nearest integer. Okay, nearest integer is the nearest whole number. Okay, volume of a cone is slightly different. It's similar but slightly different. It is 1/3 pi r squared h, meaning that it's perfectly proportional to a cylinder. Exactly 1/3 the volume of a cylinder with the same radius and height. So we're still going to plug this in. V equals 1/3 pi times our radius is 3 squared. Our height is 18. So here we go. Whoops. 1/3 times pi times 3 squared times 18. That gives you 169.64. Let me make sure this did the calculations right. Times 18 times pi divided by 3. Yeah, 169. All right. So 169.6. So if we're rounding to the nearest integer, we're rounding to the nearest whole number. So this 9 is going to round either up or down based on this 6 next to it. Remember your rules of rounding. 5 and above, give it a shove. So this is going to round up. So that pushes it up to 170. So the answer is 170 cubic inches. All right. Shawnee compares 2 cylinders. Both cylinders have an identical base. The first cylinder has a height of 4 inches and a volume of 120 cubic inches. So let's draw this. Height of 4. Second cylinder has a height of 7 inches. What is the volume in cubic units of the second cylinder? Okay. So they have to have an identical base, right? And I hate this question because when it says 120 cubic inches, I can't tell if that's a perfectly even 120 or if that's 120 pi. But squared. No, because there's no real number that actually works with that without it being pi. But anyway, so volume equals pi r squared h. So we know it is 120 equals pi times r squared times 4. Okay. So 120 equals 4 pi r squared. And you can match this up like this because pi is a constant. So now we can divide both of these by 4 pi. 4 pi. You get 120 divided by 4 pi. And you get 9.54. 9 equals r squared. We have to take the square root of that. 9.549. And you get 3.09. And it's one of those situations why I hate this question because this feels like if you're doing the test and you're going through this, you're going to feel like it's wrong because you're getting so many weird decimals. But this is following the steps as they give it to you. So the second cylinder has a height of 7. They have an identical radius. So V equals pi. I need to zoom out a smidge. Times 3.09 squared times 7. Oh my goodness, it's getting cut off. So pi, whoops, times 3.09 squared times 7 equals V equals 209.97. So 209.97 cubic inches. I'm going to have to look into that question. That's an interesting one. I'll re-record this video if there's something different about it. All right. A farm has 2 cylindrical silos for storing grain as shown. How much greater is the volume in cubic feet of the larger silo than the smaller silo? So we got to find the volume twice. So the volume of the first silo is pi times 18 squared times 20. Pi, radius squared, height. Pi times 18 squared times 20, which is the height, gives you, holy crap, 20,357.52. Now we go and find the other one. The volume is pi times 12 squared times 30, getting our radius of 12 here and our height of 30 here. We do pi times 12 squared times 30, and you get the volume of 13,571.68. Now it says how much greater in cubic feet is the larger silo than the smaller silo. So we take the larger one, 20,357.52, minus the smaller one, 13,571.68, and you get 6,785.84. Can we get something less wild, please? A candle in the shape of a cylinder has the dimension shown in inches. What is the volume in cubic inches of the candle? Round your answer to the nearest hundredth. Okay, here we go. So, this 5 inches, okay? This is a diameter. The dotted line extends all the way from one side of the candle to the other. So you have to convert this to a radius first by dividing it by 2, which is 2.5. Your volume equals pi times radius squared times height. Pi times 2.5 squared times the height, which is 8. And then we type it right into our calculator. Pi times 2.5 squared times 8 is 157.079. We're rounding to the nearest hundredth. So remember, hundredth is 2 spots after the decimal. So this 7 is either going to round up or down based on this 9. 9 makes it rather easy. It's going to round up to 1.57.08. Cubic inches. All right. Last one. Nadia has a cylindrical cylinder that stores sugar. The radius of the container space is 5 centimeters. The height is 18. What is the volume to the nearest cubic centimeter? That means the nearest whole number. So they give us all the information. The radius is 5. We don't need a picture for this. Volume equals pi r squared h. Pi times 5 squared. The height is 18. So times 18. And one last time, we're going to type in our calculator. Pi times 5 squared times 18 equals, your volume is 1,413.7. The nearest cubic centimeter means this 3 is rounding up or down based on this 7. A 7 is part of 5 or above, so we give it a shove up to 14 cubic centimeters. And that is it. So, that does it for this standard. Um, if you hung around and you took notes, thank you so much for watching. If you were with me the entire way with all these in sequential order, all 26 standards that we covered, thank you for putting that much time and effort into watching all 26 of these standards. I sincerely hope that it was helpful. Um, I hope it helps you prepare for the state test. And yeah, good luck. Mr. Deed signing out.